Started online.
Good morning, everyone. We will start in just a few minutes, so please check your coffee cups. If you want to take a refill, now would be a really good time to do that. Looks like we're ready to begin. Good morning to you all, and welcome to the seminar of the Ii Biennale 2016. Going through the material, we'll be talking today more about the backgrounds of the artworks and the Biennale, but we have a wide variety of topics that we're going to discuss, from love affairs to politics, from diamonds to tar. I think it's going to be a really exciting day. My name is Sámi. I've worked as an art producer of public art, and I'm really excited about the topics today. There's a few things about today that I'd like to tell you before we begin. There's a small video camera there, and today it's going to be webcasted to the internet. If someone doesn't want to be on the spotlight, please let us know. So if there's any cuts made later on, we can edit it out. But throughout the day, it's just going to be filming mostly the speakers, actually only the speakers. Yeah. But when you're walking by, then you might be caught on video as well. There's been a slight change to the program. Unfortunately, Anu Miettinen wasn't able to join us today, but instead we have a very nice guest. Antti Dennis was able to join us today, and we'll be talking about bio art. I think that joins to the themes of today quite nicely. Before we start, I thought it would be nice to know what kind of a crowd we have here. So let's do just a small exercise, nothing more than just raising hands for a little bit. How many artists do we have in the house today? Please raise your hand. And now it's good time to move your neck muscles and have a little bit of a check out what's happening in the next table. Good, quite good. How many researchers do we have? Seems like very well. We have researchers in almost every table as well. That's good. How many producers or art management colleagues? Who thinks has traveled the furthest?
What's the question?
Who thinks has traveled the furthest? Who had the longest way to come here, to be here today? Yeah, I think you did. We're computer here. Who had the shortest walk here or drive here? Well, from tonight, I think, yeah, but people from E could raise their hand. Looks good. I think we have a good mix of people that it's gonna spark discussion, I hope. We want to encourage you to speak, ask questions. Please write them down, because I'm sure there's going to be so many interesting things that once the presentations go further, you might forget. If you don't feel comfortable about speaking English, you can always ask in Finnish, or even Sámi, I think. I think we have people who can translate it from there too. We will have a short time at the end of the day for discussions, but I'll try to make sure that after each presentation we can have a few questions as well. But without any further delays, I think we're gonna let Merja Benjon, the new executive director of Kulttuurikauppa, join us. Well, actually, one more question. Who has been to Kulttuurikauppa? If someone of you hasn't, well, it seems like everyone has. So there's still a few days left to visit them again and see the exhibition of Anders Sunna. But I think before we get started, let's give each other or ourselves a good hug for being here today. So reach your hands a little bit. And give yourself a hug, because you did a really good job being here. It's going to be exciting day. It's going to be very good, productive day. So,
Good morning, everybody, and warmly welcome to Ii Biennale Seminar. Ii Biennale presenting this year contemporary Sámi environmental art. and the team was, like Taija mentioned already, politics of the materials. It was created by Maria Hävanner and Maria Stephansen, who will today, later on, tell more about the concept and the artists and the artwork. Me personally, I'm really delighted that we saw many artist generations in Biennale. And also there was a wide variety of materials. We had more traditional materials like wood, but also sound and plexiglass. And you and Nanno made really nice progress also in the municipality center. We located most of the artwork to environmental art park, but there's also 2 artwork in the municipality center. And as director of the food workshop, I wish that in future we will have more artwork and more process-based artwork in the municipality center. Well, like Taija told, I started my job on the beginning of March, so this was first time for me to see how Biennale is and manage it. And I saw 2 strengths here in the Biennale. The first is sustainable thinking, and I think it's very nice to see how the Biennale has been developed and created. And the other thing is this sense of community. Really important part of workshop or Biennale's workshop where local people and artists work together. It takes 10 days to build up all the artwork. And there's friendships made and lots of conversation about art and life. And through this kind of activity, local people and community can empower and also collect social capital. And there's clear evidence that it has many positive effects to whole society and community. And at this point, once again, I would like to thank artists of the Biennale, curators of the Biennale, and today's special thanks goes to lecturers of the seminar, also the producers, all volunteers and assistants who have been working with us, and of course the funders, Nordic Culture Point, Ii Municipality, Aalto Foundation, and Finnish Swedish Fund. I hope that we have an interesting day today, and thank you.
Sorry, my interruption, but if you don't mind, I will shut the door. Because it's going to be quite cold here inside.
Yeah, one question. Kysymys, että voiko kameraksi ottaa näitä vioja? So, let's begin with our program. How many of you know the word duodji? Not so many, as I expected. For me, I've studied design in Rovaniemi. For me, duodji brings to mind good quality handcrafts, traditional Sámi handcrafts, and also good quality souvenirs. But after reading the text from our next speaker, I realized that my view is very narrow, and there's much more to the concept of duodji that we can explore today. Today, researcher Irene Snarby will open our horizon on duodji and what it has to do with art. So let's welcome Irene. There will be some time for questions later on, so please keep that in mind.
Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. First, I would like to thank you for inviting me here to EM to speak at this seminar. And it's nice to see that so many people have come. My lecture is called Duodji and Sámi Experiences in Contemporary Art. And art has always been a significant part of Sámi culture. In traditional pre-Christian Sámi culture, there's no clear division between life and art. The ways in which you lived, hunted, gathered, dressed were all connected to a religious and aesthetic practice. Rock carvings, sacred sculptures called seidik in Sámi language, holy drums, yoik, and handicraft, duodji, have been important components of traditional Sámi life. Today, the term Sámi art can be problematic because, strictly speaking, it only designates an artist's cultural heritage and does not necessarily reveal anything about the expression or the content of the art. Contemporary Sámi artists are a complex group working in a variety of media, and one cannot generalize and enforce a clear definition of contemporary Sámi art that goes beyond cultural heritage. So where do I begin in this large complex of opportunities of explaining about Sámi art? I have chosen to present some of my studies as a doctoral research fellow in art history at the university in Tromsø, the Arctic University of Norway, where I am undertaking research on the works of the artist Ii Biennale. So I can get the picture here. There he is. Ii Biennale was born in 1932 and passed away in 2007. This is a work that I'm doing I'm writing my PhD thesis as a part of the Sámi Art Research Project, SARP, in Tromsø. For those not so well acquainted with Ii Biennale, it is important to know that he was born into a reindeer herder family in Karasjok, but a bad accident led him to hospitalization for many years of his childhood during World War II. And just as important is that he was educated as a visual artist and a silversmith during the 1950s. First on Statens håndverk- og kunstindustriskole, the Norwegian industry in Oslo, from 1952 to 55. And then Statens sløyd- og tegnelærerskole, Norwegian's Teachers College for Arts and Crafts in Notodden, Norway in 55-56. And after that, he was a guest student at the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts in Copenhagen from 1958 to 59. In this lecture, I will argue that Ii Biennale incorporated ancient Sámi thinking in an avant-garde art practice. I will therefore try to explain how Sámi thinking informs three of his most important public works, all of them situated in his home village, Karasjok. For Sámi Vorkadavirat, the Sámi Museum, he created Gudnes dance, the dance of the gods, a huge relief in the main hall of the entrance hall, on the main wall of the entrance hall. And he also especially designed door handle for the double door entrance doors. The third and maybe most important work in this investigation is what is called runebommehammeren. Sámi language is balin, English the holy drum hammer. It's a tall vertical sculpture originally situated in the forest behind the Sámi High School in Karasjok. What I have generally called a Sámi thinking may in this context be divided into four main areas of concern. These are in short, duodji, mythology, ecology, and an understanding of history as cyclic. Northern Samis did not traditionally have separate terms for art and craft. They used the common word duodji for all visual creative activity. And duodji is often translated as Sámi handicraft, which relates to its working process, but the concept also contains deeper aspects. Duodji reflects a holistic view of life and culture and will be an important aspect of the analysis of the artworks. The concept encompasses multiple practical, social and spiritual activities, from the gathering of materials to process involving Sámi epistemologies and belief system. Duodji encompasses both the production of an item and the item itself. The other term, an avant-garde art practice, is of course of European origins. Ii was acquainted with such practices already as an art student in Denmark in the late 1950s, under the tutelage of art historian Rudolf, his meeting with contemporary Danish art. Characteristic for the avant-garde in Copenhagen was an openness and enthusiasm for non-Western art. In Norway, there still was a governmental hostile attitude against the Sámi culture at the time, so this must have been a crucial recognition for Yoks. As a Sámi, he thus had another commitment for the traditions that he approached than his contemporary art colleagues, like for instance Asger Jorn. Some of the tools he adapted were an ever-existing playfulness and opposition against authorities. Most earlier approaches to the art of Ii, and perhaps to all, even to all Sámi art, are based on binary directions, with traditional knowledge, handicraft and duodji on the one hand, and on the other, pictorial art or daida, signifying artistic freedom and even autonomy. This lecture is not about the opposition between these movements, but rather what unites them. The study will be related to the artist's different ideas behind the works, and also the importance of context. I have personally met and had several conversations with Ii from the early 1990s. Here, his thinking behind many of his conversation will also be important for my analysis. Are there many here who has been to the Sámi Vuorkkadavid at the Sámi Museum in Karasjok? Yeah, quite a few. And you have seen Goodness dance. This is the dance of the god, Goodness dance. I will now try to explain something about this work. Sámi Vuorkkadavid was the first Sámi museum to be built in Norway. When the museum opened in 1972, it sent a strong signal representing an institution of Sámi cultural uprising. The collection were of course important, but maybe more vital was that it served as a cultural center for a wide variety of other Sámi activities. This was a time for political awakening amongst the Sámis, and many were strongly motivated to strengthen the situation. The former president of the Sámi Assembly, Ole Henrik Magga, called this building the first location where the Sámi people did not need to bow and scrape, and it became extremely important for further works for Sámi rights. Ii played a special role in developing the development of the building, both in planning and as the commissioned artist for the aesthetic arrangement indoors. He produced works of art for the building itself, as well as the pedagogical drawings for the museum's cultural exhibition. Yoks emphasized a determinate idea of creating, quote, a museum with a distinct Sámi way of thinking, quote them. At the core of this idea was a thorough examination of Sami people's material and immaterial history, combined with his academic art education. In the entrance hall of the museum, Ii constructed the monumental concrete relief Gudnes dance. Jøks embossed depiction of 5 of the most important, powerful gods of the old pre-Christian Sami religion into the concrete. Are you able to see them in the picture here? Yeah. He thereby unveiled a common past for the Samis, which have been almost muted and hidden as a result of eager mission. The gods are from this direction. This is Bjegga Olmai, or the wind god, and he has a shovel in each hand as his attribute. I say he, but it's a question, is there a he or is there both a he or a she? Something I will elaborate in my PhD thesis. The 3 following goddesses and gods are members of the prevailing family. According to the Norwegian linguist and author Jens Andreas Friis, who lived from 1821 to 1896, the prevailing mother, father, and son were supra-celestial gods, located at the top of the hierarchy of the gods. The role of the prevailing gods exposes questions that are not easy to clarify and requires more research. And the last human-like figure is described by the museum as the spring daughter. The spring goddess has equivalents in several ancient religions and represents the return of the sun, fertility, and sex, among others. Located in the Sámi museum, the figure is also interpreted as the fertility goddess Saraka, because of the drumhammer between her legs that reminiscence of Alice. The gods are surrounded by other abstracted fertility symbols, and above them are symbols of the sun, baby. You can see over the male gods and the wind god there. The sun was the most important of all the deities, as it is in most indigenous cultures. It represents life, growth, and new beginnings, and its presence in this artwork connects vaguely, not to a specific, but rather a whole complex of myths of origin of the Sámi people. Below, here on the ground level, there are small, seemingly unfinished abstract figurations, described by the guidebook as the growing generation. All figures have rounded shapes, and the females stand out as especially voluptuous. The voluptuous and round forms correspond, according to Ii, to a traditional Sámi form, which you can find in most duodji. For instance, in the nahpi, the milk bowl, and here is a very nice milk bowl made by the duodji Erik Franke. And you know, pointy form and sharp edges soon crumble in nature and are naturally not practical, but Jøks also associated rawness with birth and growth. And more elements representing traditional Sámi formal features are the horizontal linear divisions that resemble the constructions of the decorations of the northern Sámi drums, which were also divided into horizontal levels. Each level on this drum represents a different spiritual world, from the underworld in the bottom to the highest celestial level on the top, where the holiest spirits rules. And this is a picture of the only kept northern Sámi drum, which belonged to a man called Anders Poulsen, who died in prison in the 1690s, and he inherited that drum from his grandmother, so it's very, very old. And it's kept on a secret place at the Sámi Volkadárat. But if you go there and ask beforehand, before you come to the museum, you might be able to see it. So, but they can't exhibit it yet. In Gudnes dance, a complete image of an ideal world is represented, wherein human seems free of all guilt and hypocrisy. The relief can be interpreted as an attempt to revitalize old Sámi creation myths and values, which had almost disappeared through the process of Christianization and Norwegianization. The artist did not criticize religion or people's faith, but in this work he raised crucial questions of human compassion and oppression of natural needs, and what Christian mission had done to his own time. In the early 1970s, many people in the village of Karasjok were active members of the Lestadian community, an austere and conservative low church revival movement marked by pietistic influences. The motifs that Joks chose, with symbols of a pagan past, a drumham shaped like a phallus, was for most considered very controversial. Joks was well aware of this, as he himself was brought up and raised in this faith. This bold act displays his opposition against authorities and a faith in art as a means for understanding. And before entering the museum, the visitors meet an object strongly connected to Gudnes dance. And if I ask you to remember these symbols here, I will show you. This. The specially designed door handle has almost the same shape as the abstracted symbols flying over the heads of the female figures in the relief. But opposite to the mysterious symbol indoors, which are embossed into the concrete, the door handle is a three-dimensional object made for practical function. Inside there are 3 additional handles on each side of the 2 heavy entrance doors. Their oval form, with a stick in the middle, is, according to Ivar Joks, inspired by the backside of the holy drum. And here is an example of the backside of a holy drum. The material of the door handles is brass, which the artist considered as the mythical material of the Sámi people. Precious metal was a commodity that the Sámi traditionally traded from other people and was therefore quite rare. In ancient texts of Joik, brass was mentioned as a precious commodity used to trade with the gods. It was common to hang metal pieces under the drums in order to strengthen their magical power, and also different amulets made of silver, brass, and other metals were frequently used in protection against evil spirits. Because these handles on the entrance doors to the museum, they can give associations to a passage between the profane daily life on the outside, and by pulling the drum-shaped figure, you might enter the gateway into another reality presented by the monumental work Gudnes dance. The door handles also connect to another interpretation according to Joks. They symbolize a fusion of the male and the female genital organs. The oval form is a symbol of the woman, and the rounded stick in the middle, the actual handle you must grab before opening the door, representing a phallus. This is also a depiction of a moment of fertilization, which indicates a sexual intercourse or a myth of origin, also repeated in the relief inside. The question of divine fertility seemed to have a superior importance in the artworks. And Yox considered fertility and eroticism to be a fundamental, basic urge for humans, and thereby held sexuality to be of prime importance. He rejected the taboos surrounding these issues, which he felt had been incorporated through the ideals of chastity and religious pietism propagated by Christianity. He also felt a strong connection to his forefathers and mothers' ancient beliefs that he meant presented the opposite of the impure and sinful picture given by the missionaries. In an interview from 1981, he explained why the connection to the Sámi pre-Christian religions was so important to him. Quote, "I'm especially interested in Sámi mythology because it is important for me to understand what my ancestors believed in and felt, what kind of conceptual world they had. If I can grab what the Sámi mythology stood for, I can better understand myself and what the Sámi people claimed to be genuinely their own. I want to express something that belongs to my people and to me, but not in a manner in which I portray the Sámi society today. That would simply be to illustrate, but I want to dig deeper into the matters." Quote end. With the public works at the Sámi Worka Davidat, Ivar Yox made a statement to his own society in Karasjok and Sápmi in 1972. It was a visual example mediated that the Sámi ancient value had not vanished. By his practice and artworks, Ivar Yox wanted to raise questions about Sámi epistemologies, compassion, and divine fertility. The relief, goodness dance, and the door handles serve as early examples of Sámi self-articulation in a public and recognized artistic context. In these works, Sámi mythological figures and forms show the artist's interpretation of the meaning and values that characterize the pre-Christian culture. It is not a mere citation of the iconography of the holy drums. Now I want to speak about this sculpture, the drumhammer, Runebomahammer, the sculpture as a transformative universe. Throughout his career, Ivar Yox continuously worked with drumhammers as motifs, both in woodcuts, drawings, and different sculpture works. The most gigantic version is the 7.5 meters Runebomahammer from 1983 in the forest close to the Sámi High School in Karasjok. A clear-cut shape dominates the composition. 4 solid pinewood timber logs carry 2 open cylinder-like forms extending horizontally in opposite directions. Pine, as you can see, is the most common tree in this particular forest, and it plays along with its environment, even though it is debarked. If not interrupted by preservation or removal, the material is someday bound to erode and disintegrate to become a part of nature itself. Its overall shape corresponds to the title, the Sámi drumhammer. Traditionally, in pre-Christian times, the drumhammer was used to make sounds in order to communicate with the spiritual world. The iconographic element of the sculpture, which refers to Sámi culture and belief system, is evident, but the format also connects to modern art. Yox touches several huge complexes with his works, connected to context, religion, erosion, and Sámi aesthetics. With a monumental scale and the commissioner's request, it was expected that the sculpture would be situated in the schoolyard in front of the entrance as a public work in connection to the building. But Joks did not acquire a traditional Western standard of a monumental public work in the middle of the schoolyard and decided to locate the sculpture in the forest. Can you see the hammer in this picture? It's from when the sculpture was new, and it's Ii Biennale's private photo. So I think you must have been proud of that location. So when the sculpture was new in the early 1980s, it stood out like an enormous pine-colored fist in the landscape. The struggle for Sámi rights, with hunger strikes and demonstration against the damming of the Kautokeino River, was in its aftermath and highly debated in Norway at the time. The work could easily be taken for a political statement. In 2013, surrounding pines had grown bigger and branches of willow and birches approached the sculpture. The color had changed to gray, and the sculpture is almost impossible to see if you're not close by. From a distance of a few meters, it looks like the lower part of the sculpture is hidden by moss and heath, which gives an impression of the work growing out of the ground. This effect strengthens the impression of something organic, which in ecological terms belongs to the place. Runebommehammeren does not seem so political charged here, but rather gives association of something mystical and sacred. Standing in front of the sculpture, the shape and the format easily evokes a sense of awe in the beholder. It becomes clear that the sculptural vision of a hammer gives rise to another association, as a person carrying a heavy burden on his neck, or as a Christian cross. With the Runebommehammeren, Joks combines several spheres of influences. The Sámi people do not have a history for erecting huge monuments. This is a new phenomenon in Sápmi, probably arrived from a Western cultural influence. Still, some indigenous art, like the totem poles, are large sculptures that communicates important aspects of native culture. But no matter what the influence was, in the same way as Joks erected a monumental sculpture in the forest, he also arranged that it would vanish one day and become nourishment for new trees. An important artistic intention of Ii Joks was to use nature and erosion as means, and he predicted changes into the cycle of his work. For over 30 years, the Runebommehammeren has been standing in the forest, and over the years the trees have grown closer and have almost incorporated the sculpture as an actual part of nature itself. The sculpture will be marked by the great changes of the temperatures in Karasjok, with 24 hours of daylight and sun in the summer and freezing cold in the wintertime. This challenging and experimental way of incorporating art and nature with this integration makes the work unique and connects it to an avant-garde thinking that still today is not common in public artworks in Norway. It is probably more useful to search for an inspiration at its location as a key for opening up a connection to the ancient Sámi aesthetic, linked to an ecological thinking and the circle notion of time. The Sámi language has no equivalents for sculpture or installation, even though they are very important in Western art history. Ii Joks was not interested in medial terminology, but rather more in transitions. In 2015, the position of the Runebommehammeren was altered to make room for an expansion of the school. The owners of the building, Statsbygg, or the Directorate of Public Construction and Property Management in Norway, made a decision along with the board of the Sámi High School to place the sculpture in front of the entrance of the school building. So this is how it looks like today. Arguments for the removal was not only that the expansion of the school, but also that the sculpture would be more safe and viewable. The enigmatic culturally related philosophy behind the hammer was eradicated and replaced by a square building that, according to the planners, could not be placed anywhere else in the vast forest still surrounding the school. When the sculpture was inspected after lying some months on the ground, waiting to be placed there, it was discovered that the artist had mounted a plate of metal, probably brass or bronze, inside top. This could only have been visible for birds and would protect the sculpture for bad weather. So maybe it was a little prank. Following the pre-Christian thinking about brass and other metals, it would serve as a protection against bad spirits. I will state that the Runebomahamn was as connected to its site as the Seidit, the holy sculptures are. And Seidit, for those who doesn't know, but you probably do, but Seidit are rather unusual looking objects found in nature. For example, a stone that resembles a face. And mountains, waters, and grazing grounds can also be considered sacred. Around the Seidit, one could find reindeer antlers and other objects the Sámi sacrificed in order to communicate and worship the spirits. At these sacrificial sites, people had to be quiet and not to behave in a noisy fashion. In accordance with the ancient Sámi belief, nothing was to be removed from a sacrificial site but should remain undisturbed until consumed by nature. If they are removed, they no longer communicate and have lost their power. The Runebomahammer's appearance in the schoolyard today is, at least for me, not as impressive as it was in the forest. Reduced of its original environment, it looks more like a random historical artifact than a genuine piece of art. So I will change the picture to an old one. Because the Sámi concept of art traditionally has been very different from the Western term, it can be problematic to discover what unique Sámi features that lies behind planning and performing contemporary art. Many Sámi artists, including Ivioks, deny any links between the old Sámi art and contemporary art. They claim that the rupture caused by Christianization was so brutal that the continuity was broken. In 1992, Ivioks stated, quote, "The brutal Christianization gave the final death blow to the unbroken land and Sámi creative activity. Therefore, the Sámi people today have no tradition, neither in terms of art expression or experience. They are in the midst of the national romantic period, as the Norwegians did in the 1880s. The time they refurbished old Norwegian things and put them on a pedestal, regardless of quality. I want to adapt and continue our Sámi culture according to our epoch. Only this way we can continue into the future and be considered as equivalents to the Norwegians instead of being reduced to a curiosity." Quote end. During the Christianization, holy items were systematically moved out of Sámi context. Some artifacts ended up like artworks in curiosity cabinets. After the modern construct of art in the 1700s, they were removed to ethnological collections were no longer considered as art. For most Sámi, they were not accessible anymore. Still, a considerable amount of older expressions and their iconological content has survived and developed in another form through duodji, yoik, and storytelling. Ornamentations, patterns and forms of different items from everyday lives, like knives, clothes, and milking bowls, were harder to extinguish. But the knowledge of the ancient meaning of the symbols is not that profound today. It is difficult to document a clear continuation from old Sámi aesthetic expression until today, but it is interesting to observe the transformation that happens when the old sources like the hieroglyphs and the surviving stories are being appropriated by contemporary artists. The willingness to exotify Sámi art and make it into something else has been an ongoing problem too. Too often, non-Western art is expected to represent tradition, not the present. The Cuban art historian, curator and critic Gerardo Mosquera explained that the Western dominance through colonial times makes it hard to talk about a pure evolution of traditional aesthetic. It is not possible to return to a time before Western colonialism, but rather to construct a contemporary culture with a multicultural perspective, what he calls the post-colonial impurity. The word impurity does not signify something negative or less valuable, but opens up for different use of culture, specific influence in contemporary, of culture-specific influence in contemporary art. Duodji, which was so closely associated with utilitarian functions, acquires a new, more autonomous content in Jok's visual art. I will show the last picture. This is a sculpture called Stillevennertanken, Jag ska dit göra jorda, or silently the thought turns. Just an illustration at the end. It was vital for Jok that duodji did not solely belong to memory, recollection, and the past. He worked to pass on understandings and practices that would lead to a development that was essential for bringing important cultural values into the future. In 1973, he stated that, quote, "You cannot get the old culture into a modern pattern because the form is part of the content, and both form and content is changing. This change should be noticed, not at least in contemporary art." For Jok, a limitation of duodji could lead to a cultural stagnation, where you risk restraints or even worse, ending up producing copies. The conceptual notion behind Jok's works does not necessarily take precedence, but rather work as a co-player for traditional aesthetics and material concerns. In his works, we can experience various artistic strategies blending seamlessly into each other, forming an entirety without any dichotomies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ines. Thank you. I saw that there was a question in the middle of the presentation, but I didn't want to. What was the question? There. Sanna's table. Is there a question in the middle? Okay. So.
I think there was waving to me riding by on the bike.
Oh, okay.
That's why we're here. Oh, we're here.
Okay, sorry for that. Well then, it's a good thing I didn't pack it in the middle of the presentation. But how about now? For those who know the word duodji before, did this give you a new perspective to the term itself? See a little bit of a nodding. Now would be a good chance to ask about presentation. What was interesting to me is that, oh, yes.
Yeah, I was interested about this moving this sculpture to the schoolyard. I didn't know about that.
No, it
Was it a
wasn't.
big thing in Karasjok?
Hmm?
Was it a big thing in Karasjok? Did they protest or move?
I know that a few people didn't like it at all. The artists that knew Ii and so on were very stressed by it.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been a great thing in the media or something.
Yeah, because I didn't know that.
No.
It was quite recently.
Yeah.
Was it last year? Or?
Yes, it was. It was. I was there in January 2015, and I saw that all the trees around the sculpture were cut down.
Yeah.
So I started asking, and after a while, I got to know that they were planning on taking it down. So it took very many rounds to try to locate who had decided this. So and it was very difficult to get information, but then I understood that it was the school itself that was expanding and Stadsbygden that had decided it. But it has not really been a big thing, considering that I think it's one of the most interesting art pieces, public artworks in Norway, and there was no protest. So,
Did they just cut it off or?
no, they did it in a nice way.
Yeah.
So, but it was lying on the ground for I think about many months before they erased it. So we still had a hope that they would erase it in the forest at least, but they didn't. So, so I know that people have tried to inform that this was not what the artist wanted, but it was no use.
I was quite shocked by
Yeah.
this intention of the artist, and then I don't know what was the intention of the school. Why did it have to be exactly there? But
Yeah, they said that it would be more safe, and that people could see it, and now nobody see it.
Yeah.
But it's not true, because the pupils at the school had a past the hammer to the sport hall.
Oh,
So they went there every day, the pupils at the school. They visited the sculpture in the forest. So it was sad, really.
yes, I think we can all agree with that. And I think this has to do with a larger discussion about who has the rights to the artworks once they are erected when it comes to environmental art or public art. So, and also the idea of transition, what's happening to the artwork, how it's going to blend into the nature and the rest of the ground is going to be interesting as we talk about the life cycle of art in the afternoon. But thank you, Irene. I think we can join you with the discussion later on as well. I think it would be nice to have a little break now, so maybe 5 minutes. The toilets are located at the back of the yard. So let's be back 3 past 11, 5 past 11.
Ja tuo pyörä ja pyörän avaaminen.
Että on niin paljon kaikkea ikävää, niin puoli on semmoinen tavallaan positiivista ja sitten johdolla, että tämä niille, niin mä luulen, että sekin vaikuttaa asiat aktiivisemmin ja sitten niitä halutaan niitä juttuja sitten siihen. Tämä on sekin aika sitä
tuottamia tavallaan. Se pelkästään sektori, se on positiivisesti julkisuudessa.
Jos mä ajattelen minä, että ylipäätänsä vuosikertoja vaikka Oulun kulttuuri ja sitten myös kansallisuuden keskuksen syksyisin varsinkin. Nämä on kaikki just tämmöisiä positiivisia.
Niitä oli nyt tosi Se ei varmaan sillä, että
kuitenkaan kuitenkaan. Eikö se voisi olla onko se niin, sitä mä ajattelin, että jos ja voidaan maksaa silloin sitten yhtään parempaa paikkaa, että ollaan kompensoida loppuun tunteja. Joo. Oliko se niinku 250 viikkoa se kokonaisuus, miten jo paljon se on?
It's always so nice to get to chatter of the crowd, but we have an interesting program today, so let's continue. Poetics of the material, theme of this year's Biennale. Very interesting. I think the curators have done a magnificent job of bringing together, as Maria introduced us, a good variety of artists of different ages, different materials, different concepts. But still, the artworks work together, make something bigger than individual pieces. Curating is no easy job. Trust me, I've been able to watch a few do this hard job, and there's a lot of things to consider. Refining the main idea, the diamond in the beginning of what we're going to do, finding the right artist, discussions with the artist, also considering the location of the artworks, as in this case, it's very crucial to the success of the artworks. And then support that the artists need during the work are all very important factors of creating something beautiful. One could even say, or talk about poetics of the Biennale in this case. Next we will hear from the curators of the Biennale, Marie Helander, who's a Finnish artist and curator, and Marie Stephensen from Norway, who have a common background in the worry of seeing mining industry, oil industry changing the landscape of their childhood. So, without further ado, let's give a big applause to the curators.
I cannot sit down. I feel so strange if I sit down with someone. First of all, we would like to introduce ourselves a little bit further. As she said, my name is Maria Stephensen. I am from Hammerfest in Denmark, in Norway. I have coastal Sámi roots, which has been, it was kind of a secret in family when my mother was growing up. But for her, it was important that we knew and that we learned about this culture and that we became proud of our roots. The coastal Sámi people are kind of, they're a bit back during their Sámi people. We have a longer way to find. I get nervous today, that's so funny. I usually don't get nervous anymore, but today I feel like it's kind of personal, this whole Biennale and everything done.
Shall we turn around and look this way? Look
But the identity of the Sámi people is an important, it has been an important fight for the Sámi people. And I see that my generation of sea Sámis are fighting to become stronger and more vibrant. So for me to be invited to curate this Biennale was such an honor, actually, and alongside wish to work with artists and with the Sámi team. I usually work at a cultural historical museum as a curator and a presenter and project coordinator, so it was really nice to be able to curate and not produce into everything. So I'll leave it to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my name is Maria Helander. I'm a Finnish Sámi person. My Sámi background, my Sámi family comes from Utsjoki, but I have been grown up in Helsinki, and I'm really not a curator. I consider myself as an artist, and I am so pleased to have done this with Maria because of the help of all the writing things and like, oh, thanks for that and I've been doing in my own art lately. First I was doing more like identity questions about my Sámi Finnish background. And I've been basically doing photography and lately also video art and kind of short movies. And my latest photography exhibitions have been about these mining things in Kola Peninsula, but also in Denmark and in Sweden, a little bit also in Finland. So I was interested how this mining thing changed the environment, which has been like, or is still a Sámi area. But of course, we Sámi people have no power. Well, I think anyway that because of these big companies and capitalism, so people anywhere, they have no power for the land things and mining things. I mean, like all over the world.
Yeah. And like you said, we come from very different backgrounds, and this is the first time working together.
Yeah.
So it was quite interesting first to meet, and it was just so good to find common ground. That we both have this interest for how the search for natural resources and how the capitalism is taking over the landscape. So that became one of the starting points of discussion. And then there was already this wish to have the Sámi team for this year's Biennale, when we were invited. So that was the starting point that we came from. So we had to choose Sámi artists, and that can be quite a minefield, because you have the risk of falling into this ethnographical trap that some people have been discussing, that the Sámi artists have seen outside of the art, the Western art context and the art scene.
And contemporary.
Yeah, like contemporary art scene. But we didn't want to do that. We don't feel that Sámi art is different than contemporary art, as in the way that artists are always inspired by their context and their upbringing. And what did I say? I quoted Susanne Persson in the text that the field and dwellings that surrounds you always becomes a part of you. That comes if you're a French artist, if you're a Finnish artist, if you're a Norwegian artist, if you are from South America. What you experience in life becomes a part of your work.
Yeah, like if you're brought up in Sámi environment or with Sámi like values, of course it comes to you and it then reflects to your art.
Yeah.
But we were also thinking like because like the Sámi artists are still don't get, like we want to give a possibility to give the voice to those people who don't necessarily get it always, like because we are in part of Norway, Sweden, Finland and Russia. Well, here is art for practical reasons, no Russian Sámi artist, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Now.
But still, we try to find like interesting voices from the Sámi region. And artists with Sámi background. I just want to find a list so you don't start talking about everything else. And also the timing was quite special with the situation in Finland today.
Yeah, because when we started like 2 years ago, it was when it was then coming this AIB16 act not ratified and everything with this mining things and how this swap and terror has come up. So like it has really become more like topic of today, more than we even thought when we started this process.
So, and also this activism and Supantara, where you see like the second awakening of Sámi power and Sámi rights, and people are interested and cares. Like just these days, we see it in Denmark again with this big graffiti wall that is being painted in Alta. It's causing quite a stir because there are politicians who feel like Sámi power shouldn't be put in the face of the youth, and how will this affect the youth today when the Sámi people show their anger of what is happening in the art landscape?
And of course the work is like, there's Anders Suna and this, I can't now remember the woman's name. But it's like, it's like yesterday we heard about it. So, but it's still, the work is like, you can say it's in a way uses this violent, aggressive, violent, imaginary or
Yeah,
bringing people like a war kind of. And of course, I know there's discussion about it, not only like the politicians, but some people in art world are also like asking, like that how is this, like, is this good or bad? It's interesting.
Yeah, so all of this become kind of influence points when we were trying to look for our team. But we wanted to find something that we thought connected this Sámi experience. So I was really pleased when Irene was part of the seminar, because one of the influences is her article in the research project and in the publication Beauty and Truth, where she looks at duodji as some experience in contemporary art. Because we were discussing like what is becoming wrong, how can we look at this practice without Sámify it in a way. And duodji were for us both like a concept of philosophy and a way to think of material as a potential. So we were working a lot of time with this word and how we could use it and how people would consider it, because as you said, for most people, duodji is tourist souvenirs or handcraft or just this
Special item.
yeah, special items like jewelry. But for us both, we saw this duodji is kind of for a philosophy, for a way of living, and for understanding what can be a special value and strength.
And maybe also like the knowledge of the materials.
Yeah.
And as we see, like most of the artists have anyway practiced this traditional duodji, they done it or do it like in their homes. And
They know,
they know
the techniques, they know the history, they know the concept very well. And from that, the title Poetics of the Material came, because poetics can also be understood and read as to make or to do something, not only in literary theory. So with the title, we kind of want to reference to this dialogue between the artist and the material, and how, like for me especially, Utsi, one of the artists who were in our head from the beginning, used the material as a starting point for her work, practice.
and she said that she herself, she leads the material so the way, like the material in a way has the soul itself.
Yeah. So,
and then of course there was this like, we wanted to choose different generations of the artists, and like we wanted to have this two activist like area, like from the massive
group and Sámi Artists Union.
to this new generation.
Yeah.
So Pantero and today's activists, Sámi artists also.
Yeah. I also have to like put in that in this Biennale we see the term of duodji as a way of understanding cycle of life, how the artists also have this understanding of cycle of life and history as a turning point, and nature, how we give and we take, and how this is a balance in some understanding. And development of both art and of techniques and of the duodji itself, how it get modernized also.
Yeah, and it's also like what we like was this opportunity to give artists also to experiment. Like for example, Matti Aikio has never done a sound installation before, but he has really wanted to do it. So we think it really fits here, and it's nice in the park that suddenly there's something which you can hear.
not only see. And then also like Jenny Laite and Outi Pieski, they have been really interested working together before, and now they see this as an opportunity. But basically we first invited them as individual artists.
Yeah. And that's interesting in this case, because how we choose to look upon the artists when we were looking, because there's so many strong voices out there in the Sápmi area. It's quite different. And we haven't really discussed how we looked and what we were seeing before yesterday.
Yeah, but we
The
came with
different approach.
quite the same names.
Yeah, we have the same names, but we came from like this different angle.
Yeah.
But for me, it was more about what they wanted to say, the artists, what kind of voices did they have, how are they situated, how are they like placing themselves in society and politically, and what kind of message could they bring to this Biennale?
But of course, I also looked the message, but I was also, in that sense, a bit more practical, that I was also thinking like, looking a bit backwards of the artist's history, like, can they really do something sustainably in outside? Like, because there are these hopes that they will stay 3 years
And that's the workshop, it has to really produce something here.
Yeah, so like this kind of maybe a little bit more practical.
Yes. But in that way, we have like this duality to make sure that the artists we ended up with both were able to work and had a strong voice. So it became really a strength, I think, when we were discussing and choosing the artists. And some of them were like, Jenny Laite, we haven't really seen much artistic work of her. She was more known as an activist and from the performance point of view, but we had like this intuition that there is something here we need to have.
Yeah, and you were hinting like she has some works made in Lassikammi, which is like the New South Wales kind of residency in near Skipoten. In Norway, yes. So she made some installations there from bones and
Natural material.
So that's why we also were interested, invite her to do some kind of sculptural things.
So they, of course, they have to be able to fit the Biennale's rules in order to workshop and to last for a couple of years. But it has been more important what kind of message do the artists put out there.
Yeah, and how they work as a whole group.
Yeah. So in the artist group, we have presented different generation of Sámi activism, different generation of Sámi artists, and also education, because the art education has changed very much since Åge had his education till today when Matti is doing his master. We have conceptual artists versus more material experts, like Åge and Ingrid are very, they know their material, but very thoroughly. Yes. So together, they all represent a respect for where they came from, I think.
That is cool.
And they don't run away from the Sámi context, more implement it and make it a strength and a force they work with. As I said, no artist exists in a vacuum, so this background is important and can be a strength if you choose to use it as a strength rather than a barrier. So in this aspect, the practical material also can be seen as a reflection upon the Sámi inheritance and what we can bring further with us in the future. But then again, also the project has some kind of working with the cliche that the Sámi people are closer to nature than other people, and some of the pieces are discussing this a bit.
Yeah, some bit critical voices.
Yeah.
But of course, you can also, as a viewer, you can interpret, you can see them in different ways than the artists have think. We can maybe talk about that
in the end.
Yeah, with some artists. So.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe we should go.
Yeah, we should go with this. Yeah.
So,
Okay, so first these videos that has been made by this Biennale. And first we start with Åke Kaup. So let's start.
yeah.
My idea is very simple. I am concerned with the situation in the world and the rainforest, especially the conditions for the Aboriginal people in Southern America is very difficult. They are taking down the forest. People from outside and the people living in the forest for thousands of years, the people that knows how to preserve the rainforest have to move out. Rainforest will not grow at all when you take it down. You can't plant the same trees that was in the forest before. They will not grow. This structure is about this situation. The title of this work is in Sámi, it is almost Voldi, that is forest, and almost is a being. Maybe a human, but it is not a man, not a woman.
So that was all this piece, forest being, or, well, I am not strong in Sámi, Duodji. You can maybe help me with the Sámi names.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah. Åke, as we already said, he is from the first real artist wave and of Sámi artists. He was a part of the Masi group and also then he worked with the Sámi Artists Union in the beginning, or in the end of the 70s. They were fighting for the right to be Sámi, but also part of the Western art scene in a way, to be considered as artists on the same terms as other artists, without leaving their Sámi background behind. I love this photo, it is so strong. Do you have some of his early works?
Yes, yes.
So we choose Åke because he has this material, extreme knowledge of how to work with material. So we represent both the political aspect, but also this duodji philosophy of knowing material and knowing the cycle of life.
Mm.
And also, I think this piece of work has its strength with what is happening in the world today. and with what was happening around the climate conference in Paris last fall, where you have the indigenous people standing together, fighting to preserve the rights to land, the right to take care of their own landscape in a way. So I think this piece also reflects upon how we see what is happening today and how this concern about what capitalism and continuous craving and greed is doing with Mother Earth.
Do you want that we saw it?
We can see some of his earlier
Yeah.
works, but those we don't know.
Yeah, we are not going to go them very deeply.
No.
They are
It's
just to
some
show.
examples of what he has done before.
Yeah.
Because Åge is not only a sculptor, he also works as a scenographer. He has been working with three-dimensional. He works with other material than wood. Also, this is one of my favorites. It's called Give Me Shelter, which is in soapstone and plywood. And it's quite strong, the message. You can see almost like coffins ready to put people in and to the ground.
Wait a moment. I'm really bad with this. So this was like this work from 2004, Give Me Shelter, and this has been in Sámi taitekoulutus in Karasjok, the Sámi Center for Contemporary Art.
But it also has been used as an inspiration point for an exhibition at Tromsø Kunstforening. Now I forgot the title of the exposition, but it was concerning the Palestinian situation. And I guess that's also something you can see in a lot of the pieces. It's this universality. Now I'm starting to mess up the words. But it's like this universal concerns and problems with colonialism, with the landscape, with not having a voice to speak, not having rights.
And here is from the same exhibition, this Selvet, that's like, how do you say?
Like myself,
Self.
but the self.
The inner self, probably. And here you see like the part of detail of that sculpture. So he uses wood, but also like concrete and metal, stone.
And this I find so playful, actually. This is from Sámi and Sámi Artist Research Project exhibition. It's called Shifted or Change. And I don't know if you can see the person like on the other side. This looks like this border station, but it can also be like a closet you go into and change into another version of yourself. So it's kind of, it was inspired by Matisse and a work of his, but for me it also tells the story of my grandfather, who was a Sámi before the Second World War, but and they were evacuated, and then he came back as a Norwegian.
You can't really see from the photo, but here is like this Western kind of man, and here is the Sámi man. And inside there are the both clothes. There is this traditional Sámi cloth, kakti, and then there is this Western. So you can go inside and
choose who you want to be,
or change the clothes, or it could be like the assimilation, or.
But at the same time, you can also like interpret it in a way that today, how people have the possibility to decide to become Sámi and leave the Norwegian or the Finnish, and but also play around these two different identities.
This is like interesting because in Finland anyway the situation is quite different.
Yeah,
we don't play.
No, I mean play is maybe a bad word, but we have the possibility to be, as human beings, we can be so many things. And why leave something behind when you can be both I think. And I think this is something the younger generations today are embracing, this possibility to take care of a dualism within themselves. Whereas in this generation, that was not possible in the same way. So in this way, we have a development, at least, for the Sámi identity. In Norway, at least.
I remember when I was in Norway and I met one Sámi journalist, and then she was saying like what is there in Finland, like because there are those Finnish people in Lapland or people who want to become Sámi. So why don't you take them? Like it's good. Like in Norway we can do that in a way. And so like she was like, why don't you do like we do? And I was like, you know, like it's a very complex situation, at least here in Finland. But maybe Matti will tell more about that one. I mean, like, okay.
We have to go to the next.
Yes, and that will be Inwood.
Ingrid.
Okay, here it is. No. Here it is.
This is a tree. We have taken away the bark and we have made it naked. I'm trying to give it a new life as an art piece. It is quite a big job. I have never in my life worked with an art piece or a tree that big. It is, in a way, my way of honoring my ancestors, my heritage. My great-grandfather, 9 generations ago, he was a priest in Oulu. His name was Nikolaus Nikolai Ulikurikanus. He moved up to the Donnelly. One of his sons, Nikolai Nilsson, he moved up to Copenhagen and he became a priest there. And he married a Sámi woman, and from that branch I am. So when I discovered that that part of my family history on my father's side, I thought, okay, I go there and honor, and that's what I am doing. People that are writing about Sámi art, they try to make this connection between the Sámi fine art and the Sámi duodji traditions. But actually, I do not think of that when I'm making. I just do what I have to do. It's okay for me. If people see duodji in my art pieces, it is okay for me. I'm proud of my background. I'm proud of being Sámi. And actually, what can I do? I can't be somebody else. I'm just being good.
this is a little on the side, but Ingun and her assistant are like the cutest working team in the Biennale, because she's so small and he was so big, you know. And they have this own language and they're so happy working together. So that was a good experience. For me, Ingun was always going to be a part of this from the beginning. I am so lucky that I have a sculpture of her at my workplace, which I see every day. And kind of, this sculpture is so simple and so minimalistic, but in the same way, it tells the story of Finnmark in such a special way. So there was no doubt that I could not do this, you know, without having Ingun with me as a part of it. And also, like, the way she works, the way she deals with material and her background, it's like the essence of what we wanted to do here. The Gudny 2 is a sister tree to another tree she has made in Asabakti in Karasjok. I have a photo of that. Yeah, let's see the other one. Yeah. So with these two trees, she also draws the lines between her own background and family history, and sort of also like a poem, she said, between Karasjok and Ii. But it's also concerning the nature and how we take care and honor. So this is also a homage to the trees who give life.
This is the one in Karasjok.
Yeah. It's a bit smaller than the one. She said this is the biggest tree she has ever worked with.
Yeah, and I really like the idea that she, as she has said, that she normally does no sketches when she starts to work with wood. That she really, the material, the wood, talks to her mind, to her eyes, and to her hands. But of course, she said she must put it to some direction, but still there come surprises and.
It's a conversation.
Yeah, and in a way I find that's quite spiritual way to work. Even so, like, I'm not very spiritual myself, but I find it really like interesting and really nice way to work. And here are some examples just to show you of her, of her earlier works.
We can see the material.
Yeah, we haven't really putting so much energy or time actually now in these. So these are like where he used the drifted wood and plexiglass and feathers. And I think they are made, I had actually photographed them at the end of the 90s. So they are a bit older. But here you can see the same little faces that in this Gudny too. And so here is this first tree.
Yeah. And even though the tree is big and you have like this colorful panels, you have small treasures hidden within the grass of the tree. So you have to go like near and just like use some time with the tree. Actually go and see in between the lines, and also the different stones he has used has some kind of they have a force with them. So it's not just, oh, this is pretty, but there's a red stone you could see in the film she was making a drawing around to put it in there. And that is a stone with the power to ground people and to like to connect to earth in a way.
Okay. We continue.
Yeah, we continue. So now it's Thomas.
Okay.
So in a way, we have like the title of Jenny and Auti's piece is Four Walkers. And in a way, Ingun and Åge can be seen as the four walkers in this Biennale and in Sámi. But we have Joks and several generations before them, but in this
more activist kind of sense.
The aspect of the material and how you can, I mean, the physical quality of it, and how you work with it by yourself, by your hand, and master it. This is how I feel the aspect of the material. I mean, if I had printed it on paper, it wouldn't have been the same as it is here. And also this is transparent, so you can see through the images into the nature. So the aspect of the nature and the through the work. I started with duodji, and I work with graphic carvings and also printmaking. Well, as I said, I think this is the time aspect in bringing, of course, a wider interpretation of my art than from duodji, but I think bringing the things that I was learned and bringing it on with my own, perhaps, signature. And I have a different material, perhaps, than traditional material, but still it is, it comes from what I was taught in that. So, and also this collective feeling that you're not alone, you're inside the community. I think that's very important. I found these photos from Sámi, from archive in a museum, and it is unknown Sámi women, a girl and an older woman about end of 1800. And I've done this pattern of their faces, like you can think of Sámi traditional pattern in clothing and also in knives. And so for me, it's more like a culture. We're bringing culture through generation in time.
I found this really sad.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's really good, but I find it sad because Thomas is telling in the catalog that he has been born in 57, and he said that his mother tongue, the Southern Sámi, was banned to speak at school until this 1957, and then he said that basically it was so that if somebody speak it, the teacher will like hit you, so beat it out. So that's why he's also talking about this loss and memory and how to gain the language back.
And how working with the history as a material is a way to reconnect to one's own past and to lost language and lost identity. So in Thomas, you have, of course, the pattern and how he has developed his own visual language, which references duodji, but at the same time, we see this as it's the history that is the material in this piece in a much bigger aspect than in other works. And how immaterial culture also can be seen as something material.
Yeah, here you can see a little bit of the pattern, like which refers to duodji practices. And these photos are from Tärna area in Sweden, where he came from. And there was also his grandfather was pictured to be part of this Swedish Res Biological Institute. And so it's like this colonial history. And also this Swedish Sámi artist Katarina Piratsikko has done a big exhibition about this race biological research. That happened in Sweden in 1920 until 1950. And it was also like, they also measured and photographed Swedish people.
Norwegians.
Yeah. So that was that area of time. And
Also, we found it quite interesting that Thomas, he works normally with glass, which
yeah.
is not a traditional Sámi material at all. So he kind of was breaking up a bit the material.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have
But-
here some.
of practical reasons, it ended up being made of plexi.
Yeah, with this you can see there are a few examples of this work. So the glass works are like more, they are like bent
Yeah, and worked upon
and like burnt inside, or then they can be like inside. But also he makes these small glass, not balls, but like things where the picture is inside.
For me, that's
It's
interesting
ground
because
glass.
glass is such a fragile material. You have to know of its strengths and weaknesses to work with it. So the way he uses glass and this fragility also can be seen as a reference for history and how we take care of history. Because if nobody, it is like glass. You have to know, you have to take care of it. If not, it's going to break and disappear. So the untraditional material also becomes a way of speaking about how to take care of nature or history or identity.
Shall we continue?
Yes, we continue. We're trying to be like a bit short and not get lost in too much discussion. Because the catalogs also have a bit of a presentation of the artist and the pieces.
Who's the next?
The next is Matti.
Well, Martin will be here himself later. Okay.
We hope.
Oh, here it is.
Kerran muinoin oli saamelaisia. Saamelaiset asuskelivat Saamenmaan tuntureilla ja metsissä. He eivät olleet tulleet mistään. He olivat aina asuneet siellä.
So this piece is it has it's very topical. It's a kind of reaction to situation, how I see some people's situation, especially in Finland at the moment, and what kind of threats I see, what I'm worried about, how I feel that there is some kind of weird slide into a period of state assimilation and forced assimilation, and I see that some people's situation in 2016 is even much worse than 10 years ago and 20 years ago, and I think the public in Finland, I think it's a topic. It's such a marginalized topic, and it's such marginalized people that I think people are, in general, are not aware of it. And so I'm more. My piece is more like an attempt to raise awareness of a situation, current political situation, which I feel very scary and threatening the future and the existence of Sámi people as as people. I feel that we are the forced assimilation process is increasing when it should be going the opposite direction. Finland should try to make legislation that would protect us from assimilation, but I feel that at the moment Finland is doing the opposite. So my piece is some kind of reaction to that. In my personal art practice, I also have a kind of political starting point, and then I'm trying to work my way out of it and try to find some different dimensions, different approaches, different perspectives. I don't know how I succeeded. I think this piece especially becomes very political, probably, but that's now at this time it's also my aim.
Tai ehkä he painuivat maan alle, tai muuttuivat metsän puiksi, tunturin kiviksi, tai ehkä he piileskelevät vielä jonkin viimeisen tunturin takana, nämä ikivanhat auringon pojat ja tyttäret.
Okay. What do you have to speak about? I still haven't actually got the whole translation of the piece, so because there was a lot of back and forth, and what to hear you. This is a very personal piece for him, and he was struggling with how we should do it.
Yeah.
And how strong it would be and how political it should be.
Yeah, and he was also thinking like, I think at some point like should it be in English or translated or something, but actually I found that he wanted to put it to the Finnish people, to tell what's happening in the point of view of the Sámi people in north of Finland. And in a way, I feel that he wants to raise the awareness of the Sámi situation in Finland now. And this is like, we were thinking that this is like really great piece because it's still this traditional Sámi storytelling, but it turns it upside down in a way, telling the story from the future.
Sci-fi.
Yeah, a sad sci-fi.
Yeah, sad sci-fi.
And it's also like to in a way it's also there's some absurdity and some irony, but it's still like this kind of poetic and humorous, but there are these really cold political facts. And in the beginning he was telling, which was in Finnish, like that it started like he's telling that the Sámi people, we have been here always, we didn't came anywhere. And at the end he is telling like he's seeing this ongoing assimilation process going to the possible end, which is that there are no Sámi people anymore, that we have all assimilated to Scandinavian countries. And he's telling that maybe there are still some Sámi people, maybe they went like under the earth, or maybe they are like
undercover.
Yeah, or translated to trees or rocks, or maybe they are hiding behind the last mountain. So there's maybe a little hope. But then he's talking in his essay, which is in the book, which I found interesting. He's talking like why these Finnish people in Finnish Lappi area suddenly want to become Sámi. And of course he's telling like of this ILO 169, this ratifiering, that the Finnish people are afraid that now Sámi people will get some rights imaginary rights, or maybe they get the rights to the land or something. But then he also mentioned, which I've been thinking a lot, like it's maybe also this kind of envy. I might be really wrong here, but I've been thinking because in Helsinki I have also seen this Finnish Romani people, and I think like if people are not like, if they stick to their traditions and use different clothes and have still sticking to some old traditions, like from, for example, Finnish people have in a way left out like hundreds of years ago. So I can see this kind of a bit like everyone, what they think they are and like how they dare to like be different, or are they somehow looking like in their minds under our cuts or something. I don't know if I'm right, but this is like Matti's talking about that, and it was nice to notice because I'm thinking the same also. But that they are interesting issues, so maybe Matti tells us more.
Yeah.
So we continue. Oh.
You used it 1 hour now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, do you want to say about the other?
I can go just quickly, because Matti haven't worked with sound installation before. Usually he works with installation of video pieces. So this is 2 pictures from a project he did in Hammerfest for this art festival that I produced. So this is like, if we stop on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, because that is a film installation, which I found really strong because it's
to this one.
No, the other one. That one. This is Melkera in Hammerfest, which is a gas installation for producing natural gas. So this flame is when they are cleaning like the pipes and producing. So you can see it all over the city when they are burning the gas. It's like a sun, even in like the darkest days. If they are burning, you have this fake sun. So in this video piece, Matti had a fire burning, like a ball. What is
bonfire?
A bonfire. Thank you. So this flame from the bonfire like transforms into this new sort of bonfire, showing sort of the history of Denmark just within this one flame. And I thought it was such a genius video. And still today I have like this reaction when I see this photo, because I remember sitting there and looking at it and just seeing like thousands of years passing by in a couple of minutes. And from being in balance with nature till today, where we don't even know how this will affect the nature in 50 years. So, just a short clip, just a short photo.
Okay, and then who's next?
Who's next? It is Juha. So Matti and Thomas are both using like history and the assimilation as a reference point for their works.
Oh, here is Juha.
I'm an educated architect, and I have since 2006 been working with sound architecture. I've been looking a lot at how the built environment affects us, and how it also describes certain issues of colonialism in Northern Europe. Especially interesting to look at how the contemporary architecture is designed and built by non-Sami architects for a Sami community. Yeah, been working with the birch tree as a material, and I've been scavenging a lot of birch trees from northern municipalities as cut down trees. And I built this little structure that is around me now, which is kind of a wind shelter for a fire pit where we are burning birch bark tar, which is a 1,000-year-old tradition. Not specifically Sámi, but I think specific for the northern region, both in Northern America, Siberia, and also here in Northern Europe, where the birch tree has been a very, very important part of the material world and the resources that we're using. I have done some experiments that have been very exciting. Here, for example, the two latest batches of tar, birch bark tar. One is from yesterday and the other one is from today. As you can see from this little material sample that I'm in here, there are quite different color tones in the two different batches. The first one was actually burnt in a pink cat food box, which had paint on the inside, so that paint actually melted into the birch tar and created a much more lighter pinkish tone. While the other one is more the original color tone of the pure birch bark tar. One of the reasons why I chose to work with birch, besides my sort of interest and background in Sámi architecture and the Sámi handicraft, one of the first things I read about the old region, also Ii, was that there has been historically quite a lot of tar production. The material tar and tar burning is something that everyone here is familiar with, because a lot of people come here and everyone has something to say about tar burning. It seems to be quite a common thing to know about in Finnish culture.
So Joar's piece for this Biennale was a process piece. He wanted to learn how to make tar. And I think it sounds very easy, but at the same time, I think it shows how Joar likes to work. He likes to research, he likes to know the area, and he likes to connect with the history, with like the tension within a place, how does it work? He has so many interesting questions when meeting a place he's going to work about everything. And also in this project, we have been discussing a lot of different ideas before this final tar process is what it ended up with. And I think it connects, like you said, it connects the Biennale with Ii, with the tradition here, but also with the tradition of the northern area and how we use nature, and find the resources within nature. And also it is a way to reconnect to our history and where does things come from, because today you can have kids who think that chickens come from the supermarket. They are growing in the supermarket, in plastic boxes. So in rediscovering old processes like this, of course the tar which was made like in every burning was maybe this amount. So it's not about making a tar for like a purpose.
Posts and houses.
No, it's more about like finding out what makes good tar, how is it, how does this process work? So it gives us the opportunity to reconnect with the history and like touch of the material in a way.
Yeah, and also that was a kind of meeting point.
Mm-hmm.
Like he also wants to connect with the society where he is working.
Mm.
Yeah.
And the position also is quite, it says a lot about how Joar is thinking when he is working, because it is a place that is in the city center, but at the same time, like this place that has no function in a way, but at the same time is used by people. It is used by people who are out setting their lines for fishing. There were people having picnics there, and at the same time, it's just like this dump in the back of the city center. So we thought the area in itself was quite interesting, and from there, this windshield came and a social point, because the social aspect is also very important for you, that you have a place for dialogue and for meeting the society in the public.
And I also like the courage to do these experiments, because then you, as an artist, then you take a step and you don't really know how it ends. I mean, like, I don't say you are on the edge, but but anyway, it needs courage to do things like that. And then I also find this interesting in this kind of Sámi nomadic way. You are traveling a lot and doing in different Arctic areas with indigenous people, this kind of project. So I also think like this is really like, because it's not going to be there 3 years. It's like this kind of working process. And when it's done, it's like coming back to earth. So I think it's really like this traditional way that you do something and then you don't leave any traces, any permanent traces to the environment. And as I find it very interesting also because of this, when I think of this contemporary modern art. So as it has been talking, like we are going to these spectacles, like that's what the art world wants. Like there's Ai Weiwei, I just mentioned people who are like, they have factories. People are doing like hundreds of people working for them.
It's a business.
It's a business and it's really big, and what counts is like how spectacular the whole thing is. So I really find this really interesting because it's really like
low-key.
Yeah, and not even low-key, but it is like it's not so important to have this not masterpiece, but this really big piece to be there in the museum. So it's totally different way of thinking.
Yeah, we should move on.
Yes.
The next. Nothing.
Do you want to see?
Yeah, we can just, I don't know, I have no 20 minutes. So.
Okay. Well, this is almost, you can say really quickly.
This is also photos from the festival in Hammerfest. There, he was working with his collective, FFB. I don't know how to translate it right now, but they work with architecture as a basis, but in the art context, and finding like spaces in the city scene which they can transform into like happy places. And in Hammerfest, they found this cave which was used in the Second World War as a storage for ammunition. It's quite close to the city center, but still it's hidden. So they made this as a gallery and bar and like a social scene up in the cave. And here you can also see they have made a transportation system up the mountainside. Like this cable wagon. And even though this is like, it is gone, you take the material down and then it's gone. It only lives in people's memory. But I think in Hammerfest, this project actually inspired people to go and look, what do we have of spaces here? Because so many people didn't know about this even. It's like 10 meters from the road, but it's hidden. But that is with this collective, FFB. And then we have the sweaters, the Sámi shelters there, which is part of US private, like his individual artist.
Ah, okay, this.
Yeah. But just
I'm gonna hop to the indigeneity project because it's quite interesting. I think also in this sense, in this because this is a project he did with City of Doktoren. They were traveling all over the region, like discovering how people are using their genius thinking to make installations around their home, just making things work with what they have. And I think that also is quite common in that Arctic area, that you use what you have and make it very DIY spirit. And I remember my grandfather, he was like that. It was like all this crazy installations everywhere. And when we were tearing down the farm, we discovered that the whole stairs to the second floor, it was one nail. Everything rested on it. So he's like, the research part, I think, is quite important for you, like getting to know material. Yes, Jani.
We have used these old traditional walking sticks that have been used in Sámi for a long time, and they're still in use, but the older time they were like really beautifully decorated and really like your personal item that you keep with you all the time, and we thought it's very beautiful piece of duodji, how it's like very simple and practical, but it's still like a very beautiful thing, like item.
It's called for walkers, like the people who walk beside, in front of us, or have walked before us.
We wanted to play about the idea that as in duodji, we have always used the materials that we have. We have got them from the nature or from reindeer, but also from other cultures. So we thought that in this day we can use these very typical things that you just find around and take them as Sámi duodji. I'm interested about to show the not any wider this area, but it's cultural environment. The people have been living there, and it's like full of many levels, like needs on different levels, like very practical, and also some new stories, and you can find them there even they are not so visible. I would like this picture from Lapland as an wilderness area. It's kind of, you can see it also in a political statement that it's not it belongs no one, and that is not so.
In general, I'm not defining myself as an artist, morely an activist or who is working through art. So for many people it can be art, for many people it can be activism, for some people it can be archivism, it can be a lot of things, but it's so hard for me to define these things. if one has to define it, so it's something about artivism, but it's also about anarchist way of working. And if I should choose something, so there is something with so much power in performing, so that's really something where I really feel that I'm alive.
So, well, I saw here for the beginning. Yeah, this is the beginning. Now we go. So here are some of the
Traditional decorations for
walking sticks. And they also say it's like ajosalva. But they have also been like walking sticks in the mountains, but then also used to be in reindeer, like marking the reindeer calves in the mountains.
To make an area.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. To make a fence.
Yeah.
And traditionally they were from wood, but then they were decorated with these bone things. I don't know why I have only two here, but maybe it's here. Yeah, so here are like different traditional old walking sticks. They are from the Swedish Lapland of Swedish Sámi area. They are men and women sticks, and they were like individually decorated. And this is actually from Jokkmokk. It has been in the bear cave. That's that pole where you hit the bear. With the bear. So this has been at the end of the whole stick. So Jenny's and Otis' work was also like a border to make our own Sámi land, like here in Ii, like decolonize the Sámi area. And also they were thinking like the borders of today, who can go like through the borders. So it was also about this global refugee crisis.
Yeah, like today we are like discussing the border in a much harder way, and countries are closing off the borders.
Yeah.
So this ideal of who is on the inside outside is a more universal subject right now.
Why I did this?
But we only have 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We cannot go through every.
Yeah, I saw this really quickly, so
This
we
is
don't
Jenny.
go. Yeah, this is like Jenny from Lassakami. So I got just the handwriting. Okay, so like here we were like thinking like, okay, like she has done this bone birds, and here is this Run for Your Life activist walk from Kiruna to Paris during the Paris climate.
Before.
Before.
We are part of that
climate
conference.
Yeah. And this is in Sweden, in Markomiannu. This was Sámi Manifesta. Jokkmokk, yeah. Okay.
But also, I think Jenny and Artistry is very playful in how they rediscover this duodji, and like how they. It is true what they said. The material we have used and the duodjis using are what they found around them, and at that point it was the leftovers from reindeer slaughtering and such. So today, of course, why not implement other materials and what we found? This is this installation for our kindergarten in Tromsø.
Yes, it's from 2007. And this is a late work, the recent work I'm from Karasjok, this Sámi parliament.
Yeah.
And this is from Finnish Sámi parliament from 2012. So Outi is really good in traditional duodji also. Okay, then we go to the last one.
Yes, Karula.
Okay. Almost in time to.
Almost. We had a short break in between, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Thinking about nature as being full of spirits, and that was the old Sámi religion, basically. Because if you do think that the trees have spirits, you treat them as they are equal to you. And in the Western way of thinking, we don't. We think that nature is something below us that we can rule over. So in that way, I think my piece relates very much to a Sámi way of thinking. Maybe not anymore, because I shouldn't say like, oh, that's how we live now. Because I don't think we do, unfortunately. Since I live in New York now, it's kind of the opposite of how you meet with people in New York. Everybody's very, hello, how are you? Very talkative. But in the end, they are not very easy to get to know. They're keeping a distance. But here it's the opposite. You can seem very unfriendly in the beginning, but then people are very friendly and very helpful and open. So it has been fantastic. I've had a lot of assistants who are doing great work and just been very great to hang around. So I think that's really the strength of this project. All the great people who seems to enjoy helping the artist. But the language I use can maybe feel to sound a bit, I don't know, I use a pretty used language, so I hope no one feels offended by that, because it's really not about being offensive or angry, it's just about playing with language in a very serious subject, because we've heard so many times how we need to protect the environment, and so it's very hard, I think, to say that again in a new way and make people listen. So for me, this is trying to say it differently, and I hope that people appreciate that.
So yeah, my name is Nature is quite a different kind of piece, where the text and the thoughts that it will work in within you is kind of more important than the technique. But at the same time, the technique is so important to how we see these signs and how we react upon them, because I think it kind of makes them softer but stronger. This is actually my favorite from Ii. We're not supposed to have favorites, but it kind of sums up a lot of what I'm thinking about what is going on right now, and what I'm thinking about what surrounds me in Denmark, and how they want to make mines and put the waste in the pure, and the gas and the oil, and how it's all about just taking what you want, like just fucking it, basically. So I hope she's right that putting it in another way can make people think a bit more about what do we actually honor nature? Are we grateful for what it gives us today?
Yeah, in this work she wanted to give the speech to the nature. So like we are seeing, like we want to be part of the nature, and we are talking about how near we are the nature. But then she wanted to give the voice to the nature, that if the nature really says what it thinks, so he wanted it to be like a human relationship between us and nature, and like the nature is an unwilling lover, not so eager that we think to fill our demands with such needs which are growing and growing all the time. And I personally found in this piece interesting this kind of little voice of criticism, like because it is so easy to say that we Sami people live near the nature and all this. In a way, Carola spoke about these given roles we are willing to take towards the society and in our community. And that's why I in a way wanted to, I just show, which I found really interesting, because this is anyway an environment exhibition. So this was in, but I think it's really related to this Carola's work also. So this was in this Markkomäen festival, like a couple of weeks ago. And they are two Sámi sisters. They are actually like musicians. And they are Sara Marielle Kaup-Peaska, and her sister is Risten Anine Kaup. And these photos been taken per Heimli. They are all like Norwegian Sámi persons. And they wanted to criticize this silver jewelry, what we Sámi people are using a lot in our traditional clothing. And they call it like a silver performance. And there was a concert also, and they were a bit disappointed in the beginning because they really want to exaggerate, and then people go, "Oh, you look so fine," and they want to be like critical, yeah. But this is like not very common to self-criticize the Sámi society in that sense, because the clothing is so essential part of this showing your Sáminess in a way. And they were like thinking, like saying that we are living this modern Sámi way of life, and we don't want the mines in our land. But still we are like, we have this double moral that we are using the silver things, and then we don't think like it's coming from somebody else's land. Like we don't, that it's not in my backyard, but they're not coming from the trees. So they were criticizing that, and also like asking like whose land we are destroying and how we are living our everyday life and the consuming habits. So,
and I think that is one thing we kind of learned during this process, that we can see Sámi art is starting to raise questions within the Sámi society also about what are we doing, where are we going, if we are chosen to protect, how can we at the same time create more and more gakis, more and more silver, more and more snow scooters to that it is time to also see within.
But I know it's also like a question that maybe you know.
But this is like just we see the starting of this kind of, I don't know if it's going to.
But of course it's to everyone, like it's not only the Sámi. But I think also like I know, I don't know if this has set me like in private, but I know that there are some Sámi researchers who have said in this political situation in Finland, in North Finland, because of this this pressure from Finnish people that they are saying that Sámi people are not indigenous people and they were here not first, and you know all these things. So some Sámi researchers have said that there is something, even some articles, they can't put in public because it would use as a weapon towards Sámi people. Although they think maybe that it's important to have also this self-reflection, but maybe you know better if I had understood it wrong. Like,
but this is like a big discussion, so
yeah. So we can.
This is like a topic.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. I think this really opens up for us.
Exactly on time.
Exactly on time. I was just about to say that. Perfect. Running up.
You don't have to ask.
I promise that there is time for questions. So I think I have this idea now that since we're going to have lunch in this room, it would be good to get up and get a little bit of an exercise. So maybe we all grab our coats and go to the outside, maybe go into the discussions there just for 5-10 minutes and then come back for a nice lunch and continue according to the schedule, so 1:30.